Questions of Doom.
Well, welcome back to another Questions of Doom. In this series, I attempt to answer questions which you send my way via the archaeosoup@gmail.com email address, as displayed on the homepage, but also as well as will be appearing at the end of this video. Hopefully, in answering the question via video, the answer is not only useful to the person who asks the question, but also all of you wonderful viewers out there in YouTube land at large, and your glorious hordes. Now today I've been sent a question from Alizon. That's Alison spelt with a Z, which is a very cool name, Alizon. It sounds like a cyborg name. I like it very much. Anyway, you have asked this. Dear Archaeosoup, how do you even know the past occurred? I'm a big fan of Bill Hicks, and he makes a very funny joke about the concept of God messing with you by placing bones in the ground. Is it possible that the past is fictitious, that somehow we have created the past simply because we find objects and we can't explain where they come from? I'd be very interested to know about this, as I think it would be rather amusing if it was one big joke. Thank you, Alizon. Well, Alizon, you make a very good point, and actually you ask a very worthwhile question. And it's actually a question that hopefully most archaeologists do occasionally think about, and that is, to what extent is archaeology valid? How do we know that the past even happened? Well, I suppose there are two parts to the answer that I would give to that, and the first one is to do with the formation of archaeology. In the A to Z of archaeology, I talk in the video H, Harris Matrix, about something called Uniformitarianism. This is the idea that that modern, or rather observable, geological processes are responsible for the formation of geology through time, and this has a particular application with regards to archaeology. In other words, there hasn't been one massive event which formed the complex and nuanced formations that we see in geology and in soil, and therefore in archaeology. Rather, that it has happened over time using processes such as erosion, the rise and fall of sea levels, the rise and fall of ice ages, the bit by bit progression of rivers and trees and other things, soil formation through time, and that these things all gradually build up into the patterns that we see around us. What this means is that we have an explanation for the depth of time, or for the complexity of the formations that we see in the world around us. We can explain them using the processes which we observe every day. So if you take this to be true, which it more likely than not is, then it's a logical next step to assume that the layers that we see in archaeology took time to form, and therefore the past did occur. Now this isn't as daft a question as it sounds. It's very worthwhile asking this question, because you have to ask, in as much as, obviously I've never been to the Roman period. How do I know the Roman period occurred? But this actually leads me into the second part of the answer to this question, and that's actually to do with the nature of time itself in archaeology. Archaeology, as a pursuit, is something which is conceived in the present. It is planned for the future, and it aims to look at the past. And in so doing, what we do by setting out to look at the past is we create narratives. And to a certain extent, all of archaeological observation, all of the histories and the various things which we write about are stories, they are narratives, they are constructions based around objects and based around biofacts, ecofacts rather. But they are nonetheless stories. To a certain extent, we will never be able to properly reconstruct any time period in the past, because it no longer exists. And this is where archaeology really meets social theory and also philosophy, because that is really the limitation of archaeology, is that it is a subject which is forever attempting to create something which doesn't which no longer occurs, and no longer happens or exists. So it's something which is definitely, again, worthwhile considering. For what it's worth, though, the narratives which we attempt to reconstruct are very carefully thought out, and they're all based upon actual finds. So if something does happen, for example, recently there was a story about an earlier date than previously thought for the domestication of wolves into what would eventually become dogs, as it were, or pets, to a certain extent. If this new evidence comes along, then we do challenge our narrative and we change it, and that's part of the maturation, the maturing of archaeology, was the ability to question and revisit our own findings. But you do make an excellent point, in as much as archaeology is, to a certain extent, the process and the act of writing a narrative, writing a story, creating a past, which, as I say, to a certain extent, didn't happen, because our idea of the past will never really quite be what the past was. This it's a very intangible thing. This particular question and answer. It's very hard to actually tie down. I can't give you a verbatim response from someone who has absolutely nailed this on the head, because it is, by its very nature, a very ethereal idea. But it's well worth considering, so thank you very much for bringing it up. I certainly have thought about this in the past, and I'm fairly sure most archaeologists at some point think, well, just what are we doing here? What what does this actually mean? It's a very deep question to be asking, especially at this time of the morning. So thank you very much for asking that question, Alison. Hopefully this, or Alison, hopefully this answer has been remotely helpful or useful, and if nothing else, hopefully the discussion has been stimulating. I know I have found it very stimulating just to be thinking about this, actually. So to condense it, we assume the past happened because we think it was formed, certainly archaeology has been formed via processes which we know about today, so we know that that takes time. But in terms of knowing absolutely that the past occurred, we can never fully, absolutely, completely say that we've nailed it on the head, because we'll never really be able to properly reconstruct everything in the past. And also, actually, then if you bring into it as well the uncertainty principle, the idea that by observing it, and also by constructing these things, that we are actually changing them, then you enter all sorts of worlds of philosophical tangles. Once again, thank you very much for the question, and until next time, thank you.